for those that don't know me, I'm Zeke. I'm going to quickly go over the agenda, talk a little bit about what we're going to do tonight and moving forward. And then we're going to go around the horn, where we're all going to share a little bit about ourselves. I'm going to provide with my co-chair, Director Edwards, we're going to provide a little bit of the backstory and the origin story for how this task force came to be out of the Elijah Cummings Healing City Act. After that, we're going to hear from Jabari Lewis, who's going to work with us on establishing our values, our norms, and just come to some community agreements. Finally, I'm going to talk a little bit, myself and Director Edwards, about the responsibilities that are outlined in the legislation on the task force. Definitely an opportunity for folks to ask questions. Ideally, ask questions as we go in the chat, and then we are going to close out. So that is our agenda for this evening. We are going to be meeting as a task force twice monthly for the first 3 months. These meetings are going to be 90 minutes on the first and third Thursday of each month at this time. So beginning at 5:30. So if you could just update your calendars and try to be present for as many or all of them as you possibly can. I will say this meeting spans dinner time for many of us, so feel free to get up, stretch, and eat. If at some point, you've got to do that, do not feel embarrassed. Eating is, at least in my culture, a big part of how we heal together. So feel free to nosh. Each session, we're going to do some get to know you stuff. We have some really interesting and amazing people in this task force who are doing just incredible things in our city. And so what we're going to do at the beginning, except for this one, but at the beginning of each meeting, is have 3 to 4 people present for 3 minutes each on their own background. They're going to also share a little bit about sort of the work that they do as it relates to healing. So again, starting next meeting, folks will get 3 minutes to present just a little bit about who they are and how they come to this work. Final thing before we go around the horn, we want to be able to tag people in social media posts to spread awareness. Part of what we're going to be doing is doing this work publicly. I'm going to talk about that in 1 second, but Anne's going to circulate a form with the minutes for you to share how you'd like to be tagged on social media. We know some people want their personal pages, others want their professional pages, but just let us know. The other thing that I will say is that this is a public commission. You all have been sworn in by the mayor of Baltimore. So when we meet as a task force, as a commission, it is public. It is being recorded. Community has access to it. It's online. It's live. The media will have access to it. So just keep in mind that all of this work is public work. We are adhering to the Open Meetings Act. And so everything we do has to be public. So again, thrilled to see everyone. We are now going to do a quick but powerful around the horn with Ann Coy. And if you hear my baby going berserk in the background, I apologize. He is only 4 and we're working on it. 4 months.
All right. So we are going to go around and everyone is going to have an opportunity to introduce themselves in 30 seconds. I am putting in the chat the things that we would like you to share. We'd like for you to share your name, your gender pronouns, what you do And why did you want to be a part of this trauma-informed care task force? So I will go first. My name is Ann Coy. I help staff and support Healing City Baltimore and the Elijah Cummings Healing City Act. I am thrilled to be a part of this working group. My background is in teaching. I was an elementary and middle school teacher, and know the need for this work in our city, particularly for our kids. I am just going to go down the participant list as I see it and call on people. I will call 3 people at a time to let you know, like, when you're coming in the line. If I raise my hand, it means you're at 30 seconds and need to wrap up your statement about why you wanted to join this group. All right, so I am going to start with Commissioner Abrams, and then Director Moore, and then Molly, Anika. So those are going to be our first 3.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I am Janet Abrams, the President and CEO of the Housing Authority of Baltimore City. This task force is very important to us because of my affiliation with the public housing properties that we run. There are a lot of activities on those sites. And of course, we're always looking for great ideas and different programs that we can administer on the properties so that our residents can live in a decent, safe, and quiet community. So that's why I'm here this evening. As far as the pronoun, let me come back to you on that.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Regina Moore. I'm the Executive Director for Baltimore City Recreation and Parks. This is near and dear to me because, of course, being over one of the largest urban rec agencies in the state of Maryland, some of our challenges that our staff continues to face daily is how we continue to address the needs of our youth, as well as our young adults as they enter into our rec spaces. And this is a conversation me and Councilman Cohen has had many times over the last couple of years. So I'm really excited to be a part of this task force and happen to move something that Councilman Cohen brought to me well over 2 years ago and start talking about how we can collaborate and utilize our rec staff to be a part of that.
Hi, everyone. My name is Anika Richter. I'm Youth Sustainability Coordinator for the Baltimore Office of Sustainability, which sits in the Planning Department. So kind of representing that agency here. Pronouns she, her, hers. And I'm here because I coordinate our Cities Connecting Children to Nature initiative, which has a strong focus on bringing together the health sector and the environmental nature-based world, and really emphasizing the power of nature and the outdoors to heal from trauma.
Awesome, thank you. Council President Mosby, and then Brendan McFadden, and then Colby. Council President, if you're speaking, we can't hear you. Okay, we may circle back. So if I could do Brendan and then Corey.
Sure. Hello, my name is Brendan McFadden. I go by he, his, him, male pronouns. I am a Baltimore City public school teacher. I teach secondary math. I've taught at a number of schools, and the reason that I want to be a part of this group, and I am part of this group, is because I've seen firsthand the impact of trauma on the entire community, not just students, but teachers, as well as parents, as well as community members in general. And I'm just really excited to be a part of this, so thank you.
Hey, I'm Corey. Pronouns, mentor. Co-founder of Seeds of Promise. It's a grassroots organization that does.
All right, next 3 are Daniel Parsons, David Facunle, and Destiny Philpott.
Hello, my name is Daniel Parsons. My preferred pronouns are he, him, but I will also answer to they, them. And I am an English teacher in Baltimore City. I've been teaching for 9 years. I teach English at Frederick Douglas High School. The reason I wanted to be a part of this task force is number one, to honor the work that my students did, along with Councilman Cohen and several others with City Council, to make this legislation a reality. I also want to honor all of my students who are survivors of trauma, as well as my students and their family members who did not survive trauma. And I think that this is some crucial work, and I've seen trauma-informed care make a real difference in the lives of students, and I think it can make a huge difference for the city.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Anyone who knows me knows that I call myself a mercenary for change.
We can barely hear you. Like, we can hear you, but so quiet.
Let me see if I can fix that for you all. Is that better? Beautiful, beautiful. All right, I'll start over. So I'm Dr. David Fauxpi. I operate in many different spaces. So some people may know me as adjunct faculty at the Johns Hopkins University School of Public Health. Some people may know me as executive director of Roomwork Production, a social change performing arts company in Baltimore. Some may know me as the co-founder of Discover Me, Recover Me, which is an organization that utilizes storytelling from the African oral tradition as a healing practice. So why am I here? Because we need to listen to the stories. We need to acknowledge the stories. We need to appreciate the stories. And if we truly want to be trauma informed, we don't just deal with the ramifications of trauma, we deal with the causes of trauma. So that's why I'm here.
Hey y'all. So my name is Destiny Fauxpi. My pronouns are they, them, theirs. I am the co-founder and co-organizer of a youth-led organization called Good Kids Mad City, as well as a youth ambassador for the Baltimore ceasefire movement. Shout out to Erika right there, y'all see her. Yeah. So not only did Zeke ask me, to join the task force, but I'm really just here to, break this reoccurring cycle of trauma that youth have been forced to experience, especially in cities like Baltimore. And understanding that this is a generational curse, and we have to look at these root causes of violence and these root causes of trauma.
Thank you. All right, the next three, Desiree, Donna, and Elijah.
Hi, everyone. My name is Desiree Dixon. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm the founder and CEO of Built-in Therapy and Wellness. We are a group practice, private practice here in Baltimore, specializing in treating trauma. My focus is in treating identity-based trauma, like racial trauma and gender-based trauma. And part of my reason for being a part of the task force is to be able to, one, share my story of how that's affected me and how it continues to affect clients and how to work with them. Sorry, Anne.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Donna Bruce. I'm a beautician, hairstylist. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I am a person with lived experiences. I'm a human trafficking survivor. So my reason for being on the task force is to bring lived experiences, how healing can occur, and you can't heal from what you don't acknowledge. So once we acknowledge the root problem of the trauma, we can address it in a healthy way. And I'm living proof that you can heal from trauma and live a healthy life. So thanks for having me on the task force.
Elijah?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. My name is Elijah Davis. I'm a youth mentor and photographer. I'm bringing the perspective of our returning citizens, and my pronouns is he, him, his. And as a trauma survivor, I wanted to be a part of making Baltimore a trauma-informed city. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, our next three, Erika, Fariha, and Jabari.
Hi, my name is Erika Bridgeford. My pronouns are she, her, and warrior. I am a healer and a peacemaker in Baltimore. I'm also a homicide survivor and a rape survivor. So healing and really dealing with trauma at its roots is my life's work and very deeply rooted in all of my mission work. So I'm really excited to be here.
Hi, everyone. My name is Fariha Wahid. I am a teacher, and I'm also a vice president in the Baltimore Teachers Union. My preferred gender pronouns are she and her. And I'm here because I am a survivor of abuse. And I really just want to create a city where every single Baltimorean can thrive. I'm really excited to do this work with all of you. As a teacher in the classroom, every single day, I just hear so many stories of students who are really trying, but just don't have their basic needs met. And I know trauma is a huge part of it. It's affecting the majority of our city. So many of our students have experienced adverse childhood experiences. So I'm just excited to come together and put a stop to that.
Hey, good evening, everybody. My name is Jabari Lyles. My pronouns are he and him. I am the mayor's senior advisor on LGBTQ issues. So that's lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer issues. It's super important for me to be a part of this group. If we're going to create a city without trauma, we absolutely have to address and confront the trauma that folks in the LGBTQ community face and the injustice that people experience with regard to their gender and sexuality, which is a huge part of trauma in our city. So really excited to represent that perspective and challenge us to remember that as well. Thanks.
Thank you. Kevin Daniels, Lindsey Gavan, and Lyndell Hills.
Good evening, everybody. I'm just excited to be a part of this great group. I'm a professor of social work at Morgan State University. Also the chair of Civic Action for the Ministers Conference and a part of the We Our Us Men's movement in Baltimore City. And one of the reasons that I wanted to be, multiple reasons why I wanted to be a part of this great group is, number one, I'm native to Baltimore, trauma survivor, and I do care about what happens to Baltimore City. I'm embedded and very much so intricately involved in what's happening with trauma in Baltimore City.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Lindsey Gavan. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist from Mount Washington Pediatric Hospital. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And I wanted to join this group because as a clinical psychologist, I address my expertise is in trauma, working with people who've been through trauma. I'm also, like many people on this call, a trauma survivor myself. So it's been my life's passion to give back to other trauma survivors by helping in healing. And I believe that there's way too many people who've been through trauma than there are clinical psychologists and therapists and people to help. So I think we need to address this at a community level and at a prevention and policy level.
Great. All right. Good evening, everybody. It's an honor to be here amongst everybody else in this group. My name is Lyndell Hills. I'm a young organizer working with and leading other young leaders in Baltimore City through my program, Truth to Power. And I'm also a member of Organizing Black. I'm creative and I'm a healer. And so some of the work I do as a mediator as well as a meditator, throw a T in there, don't get it confused, but I do both. And so what's up, Erika? What's up? So, shout out to Mediation Center. And, a lot of the, essentially the reason why I wanted to be here was to be able to connect a lot of the key organizations like the Mediation Center, a lot of other folks who are doing a lot of the key peace work in the city, and as well as representing the folks who wouldn't be in these meetings. So thank you.
Thank you. Next three, Mark, Mary Beth, and Monica.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mark Jews. I am Executive Director of Holistic Health Counseling Coaching. My pronouns are he, him, his. Unfortunately, I too, like too many of us, have gone through trauma, but I am here, and my work continues to be to find out the differentiation between some of us who have continued to heal versus some who have not, and continue to, we see how that manifests, excuse me, in our overarching city. The work for me, and being a part of the Trauma-Informed Care Task Force, being a native Baltimorean and knowing some of my close family, friends especially, who need this and they can aspire. I'm sorry, it's 30 seconds. My bad, Ms. Ann.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Mary Beth Haller. I'm Deputy Commissioner of Youth Wellness and Community Health at Baltimore City Health Department. And this legislation, this very important legislation, has some critical responsibilities that the Health Department will be carrying out through its Office of Youth Trauma Services. And I'm here in a non-voting capacity. I'm going to stop in on the meeting whenever I can. I just want to support my team and make sure that we're doing everything we can to fulfill the goals of this legislation.
Hello, everyone. My name is Monica Guerrero Vasquez. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I am the Executive Director of Centro Sol, the Center for Health and Opportunity for Latinos. And this work is very important to me. I want to share my story. I want to share my experiences and really learn from the team in this group. I want to share my journey of healing to make an impact in policy changes, to be more effective in supporting healing processes in our institutions and in our communities, and especially the prevention of trauma, serving our communities, all of our communities, our communities of color, our immigrant communities, our communities who don't speak English, all of them. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, our next three, Nika, Panagis, and Phil.
Hello, everybody. I'm Niki Danby. I'm the Director of Community Development for the Living Well Center for Social and Economic Vibrancy. I am also the creator of Fight Like Be More and a number of other things. I'm here really to support making sure that we are looking at trauma in ways and looking at healing trauma more specifically in ways that are culturally appropriate for Black folks.
Hi, everyone. My name is Panagis. I'm a Baltimore born and raised individual. My parents immigrated here. I'm also the survivor of trauma. My pronouns are he and him. I'm a pulmonary and critical care doctor, and in about 10 minutes, I'm going to go off to work in the COVID intensive care units tonight. But the reason I wanted to be part of this is because you can't engage in Baltimore. You can't engage with our community, with our loved ones, our family, neighbors, without recognizing trauma that transcends all gender, race, and ages. So honored to be part of this and work with you all great folks on this.
Phil, Shauna, and Stephen.
Phil Leaf, he, him. Officially, I guess, is a professor at Johns Hopkins, but I'm actually a recovering sociologist. And looking forward to, again, being able to be part of something that's actually going to have an impact. I think clearly what people are really not just motivated, but we have real expertise and the ability to help get things done. And I'm just really excited to be just a part of that.
Peace, everybody. My name is Shauna Marie Brown. I am an integrative psychotherapist, a liberation-focused community healer, born and raised here in the city of Baltimore. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I am here with the intention of ensuring that we are acknowledging historical as well as present-day traumas, those that impact both collective and individual. I'll be pulling from my experience of supporting the healing of trauma, both from a grassroots perspective as well as providing sort of clinical care in the mental health sector. and to pull on some of the work that I do around the decolonizing of mental health care and ensuring that we are amplifying that when we are seeking to make changes in this collective space, as well as we're amplifying perspectives related to the research.
Great. Tamar, Tara, and Teresa.
Hi, I'm Tamar, and I'm a professor at the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health, and I direct the Center for Adolescent Health there. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm incredibly grateful and excited to be part of this amazing group. My passion is promoting well-being for young people. I'm originally trained as a clinical psychologist, and so mental health and wellness and healing from trauma are just very, very deeply important to me, both for individuals and for communities, and just really looking forward to working with all of you.
Hey everyone, my name is Tara Doty. I go by Dr. Tara. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I remember doing a student session and she had me add the word goddess. So she, her, hers, and goddess. And so I will add that as well. And I am the founder and lead consultant of Stage Wellness Group. We are a trauma-informed consulting agency that provides professional development and organizational strategy to organizations, including school districts, hospitals, and nonprofits. And I am here because I believe in post-traumatic stress recovery and the beautiful process that involves and entails. So I'm very excited to be here.
Hey everyone, my name is Teresa Bruce. I'm a current city schools educator. I teach 8th grade social studies. It's like the passion of my life, actually. And I'm here because I believe, right? Simply put, I believe in my city. I believe in my youth. I believe that this task force is one of the vehicles for which we can see our citizens thrive. Baltimore is the best city in America, hands down. And yes, I'm biased because I'm from here, but it is. And it's time for the world to know that too. And one of the ways that we do that is through healing, right? Because people become their best selves when they're their whole selves. So I'm here to make sure that that happens and to listen and to collaborate. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next three, Director Edwards, Tracy, and then William.
Hi, I'm Tasha Edwards, Executive Director of the Mayor's Office of Children and Family Success, and I am here to learn and to serve. And my pronouns are she, her, hers. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Tracy Kaiser. I am the Senior Vice President of Resident Services at the Housing Authority of Baltimore City. I do not know why I just got the triangle of death to say that my camera is not working, so I apologize. I apologize for that. My gender pronouns are she, her, and hers, and I'm excited that I was invited by Commissioner Abrams, and it's really important that my staff and I are able to respond adequately to the trauma that our residents experience, especially those living in public housing, and to be able to create a healing space for them. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is William Kellebrew, Director for the Office of Youth and Trauma Services, and my gender pronouns, I'm gender neutral. And at the same time, I'm here because I'm representing the health department and the role that we play, and Dr. Jarasa, Letitia Jarasa, who's our commissioner. And lastly, I'm a trauma survivor, and this is my life's work and life's passion.
Thank you. Young Elder, Councilman Cohen, and I'm going to go back to see if I missed anyone since we started, but Elder and then Councilman Cohen.
Hi, everybody. My name is Young Elder. I am a youth leader, part of Heart Smiles, and a Healing Youth Ambassador. And I'm here because I'm really excited for our city to start healing. And a lot of people always ask, why is there so much violence? Why is there so much violence? And the answer is it's trauma. And now we have the people here, the healers here, and we can do this. So I'm really excited for this to start.
Hey, I'm Zeke, he, his pronouns, and I'm here because I love Baltimore, been a public school teacher, been a city council person, and know that it is not the young people or the people in our city that is broken, it's the systems. And that's what I hope that this task force can begin to fix.
Awesome. I think we also have Brittany from the council president's office.
Yes, thank you so much. I apologize. I've been having some internet difficulties today. So in case I wasn't here when you originally called. So my name is Brittany. I am the Chief of Government Affairs for the Office of the City Council President. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And I am very excited to be here. Prior to working in legislation, I worked for the Maryland Coalition Against Sexual Assault and supported survivors of sexual assault. My background is in social work, and as a sexual assault survivor myself, I understand how important it is when you suffer from trauma to get connected to care and to have a good supportive system. So I'm very excited to be here tonight and looking forward to future meetings.
Wonderful. We're glad to have you. And Steve, I don't know.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for inviting me to participate. Last name is Zinn. The C is totally silent, so that should make it easy for everyone. I'm a pediatrician. I'm the chair of the Department of Pediatrics at the University of Maryland and a director for the University of Maryland Children's Hospital. And we see a tremendous amount of children who suffer from trauma, and we now understand that this has a lifelong implication. So I'm hoping that we can partner with many of you and provide some counseling, some guidance, but understand from you how we can help the community. So we are part of the community. We've been here for 70 years, and I think now's the time for us to step up. Thank you.
All right. Thanks to you all. I am going to pass it back over to Zeke.
Awesome. So again, it is so good to be with all of you. What an amazing group. We've got poets and pediatricians and beauticians and teachers and youth and just the best of Baltimore, and another reason to love our city. So again, I am really excited to be able to dig in and do this work. I'm going to share a little bit of the backstory, the origin story of what got us here. I'm going to ask Anne to pull up our PowerPoint. Thank you, ma'am. So about a little over 2 years ago, we came together out of a tragedy that took place at Frederick Douglas High School, which is that there was a school shooting. A gentleman walked in with a gun and shot a school staff in the middle of school. Young people were there at the time, teachers were there. It was incredibly traumatic for the children, the staff, the community, and for really everyone. And at the time, a lot of the adult discourse conversation was around, should we harden the targets of our schools, right? Should we have more metal detectors? Should we have our SROs, our school police, have guns while they walk around in school? And so we wanted to have a hearing where we really tried to center the voices of youth to share their own experiences with violence and to really provide thought and solution. And so on April 10th, 2019, we held that hearing, and by far the most powerful testimony came from Mr. Parsons' students. On the mic is Brianna, Damani, and Jayana. And they spoke and really sort of indicted us as a city council and said, you all are spending way too much time thinking about how to police us and not nearly enough time thinking about how to prevent that which does harm within our lives. And not just this one-off school shooting, as horrific and terrible as that was, to have our safe space get violated like that, but really the day-to-day traumatic experiences that we have. And they spoke about housing instability and homelessness, and they spoke about substance use and addiction, and they spoke about instances of violence, and they spoke about just what it means to grow up Black in a city that was the birthplace of redlining and that still is so deeply segregated and inequitable. And they really charged us as a council to legislate, to use our power as lawmakers to try to address trauma within our city. And when you hear that kind of testimony from young people, especially when you've been a teacher, it really, really behooves you to listen. And so after the hearing, we got together with them. And if you could hit the next slide. And we started to envision and brainstorm and listen across the city and try to identify what could be the best legislative solution to trauma. And we listened in libraries, in laundromats, in rec centers, in classrooms. We really went across the city to try to hear from folks. And the thing that we heard, and again, you all know this because you all are amazing and do amazing work, is that we already have so many healers in Baltimore. But one of the challenges is often the work can be siloed and can feel fractured, and that there hasn't been some real leadership out of City Hall, out of City Council on this issue. And so as we went around, folks really got interested, and it kind of built this groundswell and this movement of people saying, look, now is the time for us to come together and try to unify and try to leverage each other's strengths and our skills and all the rest to really begin to heal our city. The other thing that happened at this time was the late, great Congressman Elijah Cummings, who is a personal hero of mine, had been leading this work nationally. In addition to prosecuting President Trump in his Judiciary Committee, he also held the first ever congressional hearing on childhood trauma. And he also called on us in Baltimore and really said to us, like, look, I'm not going to be here that much longer, but you all need to pick this up and you need to do this work. He called everyone together at the Humanum Center and really kind of tagged us and said, you know, let's go. Baltimore needs to solve this. Next slide. And so about a year ago, we held the first ever Youth Healing Summit over at the Great Morgan State. Young people, we had about 350 students from across the city came together to do TED Talks and poetry and panels about healing from trauma. That young woman dropped the mic, amazing, amazing poet. And it was really, really, really powerful. Next slide. Again, this was one of the panels. That's Anaya. She is on our task force, but really powerful to hear from our young people to provide solutions. Next slide, please. And so then on Sunday, we went over to Coppin State, where we had a huge resource fair. We had barbers and beauticians. These are some of Ms. Donna's friends, giving out free haircuts. One of the interesting things was hearing from folks like Donna and Troy Stanton that our barbers and beauticians saw themselves as healers within our communities and really wanted to be part of this work. And so they were out there. Of course, we had the Mayor's Office of Children and Family Success, Director Edwards, and the Love Over Fear shirts in the background. But we really had so many organizations from across the city together. Next slide. And then we marched over from Coppin to Frederick Douglass High School. Again, it was like a big procession of people. We had the Frederick Douglass marching band. It was cold, but it was fire, and people were really, really, really charged and energized. Next slide, please. And so then we went to Frederick Douglass, and the young people, again, Brianna, Jana, Damani, spoke about what it was like to help write this bill and what it means for them to have been part of this process. And what is powerful is, as next slide, please. As Mayor Young signed the bill, it made Baltimore the first city in America to comprehensively legislate trauma-informed care. Other cities have done various, have had like nonprofits that have been engaged, have had universities, but no major city besides Baltimore at this point has actually legislated it. And so we're really on the vanguard of this movement. So the Elijah Cummings Healing City Act, the bill that Mayor Young signed, it does three main things. One is that it creates a task force to develop a citywide strategy to make us into a trauma responsive government. That is us. Number two is that it calls for training of all city agencies on trauma-informed care. And then number three is that it calls for a review of all policies and procedures to make sure they are trauma-informed and equitable. One of the tacit acknowledgements in this legislation is that far too often in our history, Baltimore city government has contributed to trauma, whether it goes back to our sweeping ordinance in 1910 that segregated our city with Jews and blacks and whites all separate, whether it's the way we colluded in redlining, whether it's the war on drugs, which, as we know, became a war on primarily Black and brown communities. But even in sort of the micro policies that we have, that we ourselves, city government, has unfortunately created so much of the trauma that we experience, and that we have a responsibility and a duty to undo it. Next slide, please. And so that brings us to this amazing group, which, as you all know, was sworn in pretty recently. This is a first of its kind, the Trauma-Informed Care Task Force. And again, I appreciate every single one of you for being a part of this journey. I think there is nothing we can't do. And the theory here really is that Baltimore is beautiful. It's an amazing city filled with healers. And the idea is we just need some space to connect, to do the work in partnership, to cross the silos, to have government and community at the same table, to acknowledge all of the healing work that's already happening within our city, but to really create a unique space for us to be able to work together. So I am super excited, as you can see, about the work that we are going to do together. And that is it for my PowerPoint. And I am now going to turn it, apologies, I want to give Colby Sangri an opportunity to introduce themselves.
Hi, everybody. I thank you. And I put some words in the chat. So I use they, them pronouns. I do operations at the Yes Drop-In Center. We are a safe space for youth experiencing homelessness. I'm on this task force because our youth and our residents deserve to access services that don't re-traumatize them. They deserve services that are not just easy to access, but are relevant and peer-led and trauma-informed. And if we want to get there, if we want to heal Baltimore to that point, it's going to require a deep dive and to address the root causes of trauma. So as a trauma survivor myself, I have personal stake in this work, and I'm just generally really excited to learn from and collaborate with y'all.
Thank you so much, Colby. And last but not least, we also have the great delegate, Regina Boyce.
Good evening, and I certainly apologize for being late in session, and I am zoom to the zoom, which can also be a little traumatizing in and of itself, but I'm happy to be here. Regina T. Boyce, delegate of the 43rd District in Northeast Baltimore. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to, when I was in high school, I was on a track team. We had a shirt that used to say, "Don't talk about it, be about it." And I'm hoping that this trauma-informed task force, along with myself, and all of us can stop talking about it and start really being about it. We know that we're traumatized. We know the trauma that exists, and I'm excited about the healers right in this room, in this Zoom room that is going to start really healing our city, because we're going to start doing the work. It's not going to be easy, but I 100% know that I think each and every one of us are going to love doing every minute of it. So I am excited, and I'm excited to work with you. And thank you so much, Councilman Cohen, for leading such a fierce, and I think it's going to be an impactful group. And hopefully we are the folks that set it off for other folks to then do this work as well, because we won't be the only ones.
Thank you. And actually last, but definitely not least, my colleague, Odette Ramos.
Hi, everyone. I'm so sorry to be late, and I look forward to formally meeting all of you. I was just in a meeting about the terribleness that is Greenmount Avenue right now in terms of the construction, and it's coming along, thank goodness. But talk about the trauma that it's sometimes placed on the residents in terms of what's happening there. Anyway, so I'm really thrilled to be a part of this. I have a lot of learning to do, and I'm excited to learn from all of you and contribute what I can to the conversation based on my years around doing work around affordable housing and stable housing and homeownership preservation. As you know, I'm right now on a crusade to really address this horrible predatory tax sale system we have. So I really just look forward to working with all of you and learning from you, and really being a part of this amazing movement. So I thank you so much for letting me to be a part of it. Thank you.
Awesome. Fantastic. So I'm now going to turn it over to my co-chair, who's had a long day. She just rolled out her Mayor's Office of Children and Family Success Children's Cabinet report. But I'm going to hand it over to Tasha Edwards, who's going to share a little bit about how all of this work fits together.
Thank you, Councilman Cohen, and thank you for everyone who has joined us for our first meeting of the Trauma-Informed Care Task Force. And what's really great about the work that we are doing here together is that we are a part of something bigger. I'm so glad that Councilman Cohen had the foresight to understand what was possible in this arena. And as he said, no one in the country has legislated trauma-informed care. And so through that kind of perspective, what we have been both working on is creating a strong ecosystem to support this work. As you could tell in the introductions, we're all doing something individually, and we're all making an impact in our individual space, but we want to make this bigger and scalable, and we want to have much farther reach, and we want to drive real change, systemic change, and cultural change in our city. And so to do that, we need to harness everyone's capacity and passion to really lift this work up, to realize the vision that's in the legislation, but spans much further than the legislation. So many of you here are kind of involved in multiple parts of this work. I've heard so many of the names who are also a part of the Healing City Community Movement. I've also seen in this room, folks who have been working with the Mayor's Office of Children and Family Success on the Children's Cabinet work. So this is a visual of kind of this ecosystem that we are trying to create so that we can really drive meaningful, deep cultural change in Baltimore. And it's going to take all of us. I expect that this ecosystem is going to get stronger and stronger, that there will be more bubbles on this ecosystem as this work grows and develops. As Councilman Cohen said, we did release today the Children's Cabinet Action Plan, which has 7 priorities. Those priorities are important because many of the issues within those priorities also affect trauma. We are addressing trauma through the work of the Children's Cabinet. Food insecurity, youth homelessness, youth literacy, diversion, and the impact of the criminal justice system on our community. Those are all things that will contribute to this work. And finally, I just have to give a shout out to the Healing City community. Councilman Cohen went through that history of that amazing event that we had a year ago, and then he blew it out with the Healing City community again in this year. And so these are all access points of strengthening the ecosystem that we all are a part of in some form of fashion. And so that's how, when you hear about Healing City or the Children's Cabinet or the task force, I want you to know that we're all working together. And we're all working towards the same thing, even though we may be doing it in different bubbles, if you will. So that's kind of the initial framework for the ecosystem for making Baltimore a healing city, a trauma-informed care city that we're all working on together. How did I do, Councilman Cohen?
Perfect. Great job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tisha. All right, I'm going to turn it over. That was a perfect summation. I'm going to turn it right over to Jabari, who is going to walk us through trying to shape some of our values as a newly formed community and how we want to engage and love on each other.
Awesome. That was a really great framing, Zeke. Thanks so much. Just listening to everybody, what an incredibly powerful group. Not just because of the expertise and the experiences that we bring into the room, but what Ms. Bruce said, our belief. So when you get a group of people who believe together, who dream together, that's real powerful stuff. Now, when we're dealing with something as complex and as personal as trauma, it's going to be really important that as we invest in the work, we invest in ourselves, we invest in the process, we invest in how we share ideas and show up at the table and make sure that all of our individual experiences and histories and beliefs are baked into the group, but that we see and we hear each other. That's going to be super, super important for this work. We've been doing a lot of talking at you, and I really want you to talk at us a little bit around how you envision this going. So I want to start, first of all, with just some good group agreements. Some good community agreements, things that we are going to agree on every time we meet as a group. How do we show up? What are things that you're going to need from the group in order to be heard, in order to be seen, in order to feel as though your identity, your presence, and your voice is safe and that we are doing right by you in that. A lot of people talk about safe spaces, and that's wonderful, but I think that we want to create a brave space, right? So where folks feel brave to speak up and to step up and to move with passion and to move with bravery. And also when we hit up against a barrier or hit up against a bumper, that we check in with each other with a sense of love and justice so that we end with the understanding of healing and hearing each other. So that's going to be really important. So I want to engage in the conversation a little bit about what those community agreements are for you. Now, for many of us, this is not the first time that we've done some share your community agreements, right? So if you're thinking that, oh, this is just one of those exercises, you're right. It absolutely is. But it's going to be important each time we engage with any new group to share those things. So I want to hear about those community agreements. And then hopefully we can talk about some collective values, things that we believe to be important, things that we hold true and dear to us as we do that work. And then a little bit about what's to come. If we're going to talk about this work in this way, we have to make sure that we're operating with a similar frame of reference just for the words that we're using. So when we say trauma, when we say oppression, when we say white supremacy, like when we say colonization, what do we mean? And making sure that when I say that word, you hear me in the way that I need you to hear me. So that's what my portion is. And so I want to start off with the community agreements portion. What are those things that you're going to need out of the group? Things that we're going to agree on, ways that we communicate, ways that we show up. And Zeke came up with a really good one in the beginning, which is about self-care. So if you need to, munch on something, get up and stretch, turn your camera off and, stretch your, I always have to sort of like do one of these and I feel awkward on camera when I do one. But that's, I think, a really important guiding principle and a guiding community agreement is to make sure that if we're going to be with each other on an evening on a Zoom, that we're taking care of ourselves. So self-care is going to be huge. But I'm interested to hear what are some other community agreements that we can agree on. And I got a whole list in case nobody wants to talk, but I think this is a group that really is going to engage in this. So I would appreciate if you either put it in the chat, you use the raise hand feature, or you just unmute yourself and really engage in this conversation with us around what are those community agreements that are going to be important. I see some that's coming in the chat, and self-care already is something that we're going to agree as a community that we uphold in each other. But what are other things?
Listen with love and understanding.
Love that. Listen with love and understanding. Great. And Corey, thank you for sharing that. Can you talk a little bit about what does that look like to you? How do you know you are being heard with love and understanding?
Well, it's active listening. And when a person really is intent to hear you and respect you, they're going to listen to find out everything that you need and you're going through, your traumatic times and your good times.
I appreciate that. I'm also seeing here, take space, make space. That's one of my favorite ones. Tamar, did you want to share a little bit about what that means to you?
Thanks. Yeah, just I guess that we each feel like we can speak and be heard, and also give others that same space and kind of notice when we may need to step up or step back.
I appreciate that. I was definitely one of those elementary school kids that's like, pick me. I want to talk all the time. And not realizing that I'm taking up a lot of space. And even though it's beautiful and amazing that I want to be heard, for other folks who that might not be as easily, come to them as easy, they might not feel as prepared or as equipped to take that space. And so if you recognize that you're someone who dominates the conversation, dominate, do your thing, but also be be cognizant of how much space you're taking up, and maybe challenge yourself to practice and say, you know what, let me make some space for other folks. If you're someone who in these groups, you're usually quiet and you don't usually share ideas, we want to encourage you and challenge you to take your space and to speak up. We want to hear from you too. And so really making sure that we are clear about that ebb and flow of conversation is going to be super, super important. I see a whole bunch of stuff in the chat. I see accountability and hold each other accountable. Tiffany, did you want to talk a little bit about what accountability may look like to you in this space? And Tiffany, if you're talking, you are muted.
Tiffany isn't, I don't think, formally on the task force, so she's in the attendee. So she's not talking. I can elevate her, but that's why you can't hear her.
All right, gotcha. Well, Tiffany, we hear you. Thank you for that. I see ready to listen, honor stories, honor pain, commitment to be challenged, continually reflect and grow, confidentiality with a twist. So what's said here stays here, but what's learned here leaves here. I really love that. Agree to disagree. Not everyone knows everything, but together we know a lot. Humanize each other. And so I really like this because something that I have on my list is about understanding the difference between intent and impact, right? So we're going to have really great intentions when we're talking with each other, and we're going to assume best intentions when we're communicating. However, sometimes when we say something, it might not come out right. And so we have to own that impact. We have to own that even though we had the best of intentions with what we said, if it landed weirdly or strangely for folks, even though that may not have been your intention, that we own that impact and making sure that we hold each other accountable for that. So that's really awesome, humanizing each other. Okay, I also have one that it's sometimes comes up when we're in person. It's a little bit easier when we're in Zoom, but one mic, one diva. And I love that, right? Because that means just one person talks at a time, right? That we're not talking over each other. It's a little bit easier to moderate on Zoom, but when you're the person, the spotlight's on you, you're the diva, right? So we don't need other divas, so make sure you keep yourself, muted in that, but we give each other that time and that respect to hear each other. Creating a community of learning. None of us has this figured out, absolutely. So we're always teaching, always learning. I was just floored by all the different life experiences that we bring to the table. So making sure that we all have something to teach, but we also all have something to learn. And I love the William reminding us of all the gender neutral ways that we can say diva, divo, diva, whatever that is for you, whatever your inner diva or divo is, making sure that there's just one. So I really like those. And so just, any last ones before we move on?
I would like for, if somebody hears something that they feel offended by or something they don't understand, I would like for people to speak up and ask, what do you mean when you said this? Like whatever the part was that offended you, repeat it and, ask for it to be unpacked so that the person has a chance to really explain what they meant by it. And don't just stuff it and, murmur about it, but like really say it out loud, because if we are saying offensive things, the only way to learn that that's offensive is for somebody to bring it to your attention and hold you accountable and let you unpack it and do something different with it. So I would like for us to, where there's conflict, for us to just have it openly and honestly and, move through it.
That's going to be a super, super important promise that we keep to each other. The way that I've heard that described in other spaces is oops, ouch, right? So if we say something that maybe didn't land right, maybe we know we could have said something better, it could have been a little bit problematic, it's okay to oops that and be like, you know what, oops, didn't mean that, it came out the wrong way. Let's talk a little bit about how we move together as a group towards understanding. But on the other side, if you hear something that didn't quite land well for you, you can be like, ouch, I didn't like that. Can we talk about that? And so having this open agreement of sharing oopses and ouches is going to be super, super important as we engage. I also want to lift up what Sean is saying here is honor lived experience as a form of expertise. Absolutely, lived experience is a form of expertise, particularly in this space. And I really, really appreciated having people share in their introductions when they said, I'm a survivor of trauma, and like owning that and appending that to your identity in this group is going to absolutely be important. So making sure that we're always centering the voices of the folks who have the closest experience with this. We are all experts from our perspective. Praise in public and address conflict without humiliation. Consider it in private conversations. And we all have different degrees of trauma. Absolutely, right? So I always like to say we don't want to get into what's called the oppression Olympics, right? That's not what this is. We're not trying to get a first place medal in oppression. We're trying to hear from each other, understand how we occupy spaces of both privilege and oppression really simultaneously. All of us do. And so being really clear about that. No one is trauma-less, for sure. And so I think that's coming up for me, like power dynamics in the space, right? No one is trauma-less. We all are on the same team. So I really appreciate that. Repair can be easy. Communicate authentically, right? And I think that so many of us in this room, that's maybe something that we practice in our daily lives already. I can already see as folks smile and nod, the vibe is strong for this work. So I really am excited. And the thing is it gonna be messy? Are we gonna make mistakes? Are we gonna have to check in with each other? Yes. And so making sure that we lean into that discomfort. There are gonna be things that make us uncomfortable. But instead of shutting down, that we really lean into that discomfort and ask yourself, why did that make me uncomfortable? I always say that once you feel a little bit like you've lost your footing a little bit, that's like the most fertile ground for learning. When you don't quite know what's going on, that is like your best opportunity to learn something new. Big affirmations in the chat and out loud. Yes, let's affirm each other. Let's celebrate each other. If you see something or hear something, do a snap, do a praise, whatever that is. We love that type of stuff. And calling in, not calling out, right? And so I think that for me, the way I conceptualize that is when you call someone in, you're like seeking to be understood. You're seeking for understanding, right? When you're calling someone out, you're just seeking to be right. And so I think that listening for understanding and communicating for understanding, not just to be right, right? So I really appreciate this. Y'all are doing a great job on this conversation. Perhaps considering progressive stack, allowing people who are from historically neglected groups to speak first if they want to, rather than dominant privileged groups talking first. Absolutely. So recognize the identities that you bring in the room and how those identities interact in this conversation, whether that be your race, your gender, your ability, your country of origin, whatever that is, really making sure that those power dynamics are, that you're checking yourself. Be solution oriented. The need to be right is an act of violence. Dr. Wayne Dyer, wow, okay, Erika. Do the personal work, be mindful and aware of your privilege. Wonderful. So I want to pivot us a little bit to talk about shared values. I think that was a lot about our group agreements, but things that we are all thinking about in terms of like core values, things that we hold close, things that we believe, things that we really do value as things that we believe in the group. So in order to do that, there is a website here called menti.com. If you go to this website and enter this code, what you're going to see is a little box that's going to ask you to put in between 1 to 3 words. You can just put 1, you can put 3, and those words are going to pop up on our screen here. And as you can see, some people have already participated that when it comes to some words that come to mind for things that we value, our core values as a group. I put these 3. I put experience, number 1. And that's really all about making sure that we are valuing the folks who have lived experience in this space. That's going to be huge. No one is trauma-less, but the folks who have those experiences, listen to them and be led by them. Love, that's a huge value that I see a lot coming, particularly out of the mayor's office of children and family success. And there's so much love in our city. And so let's tap into it. Let's use it. And so how do we love our city? How do we love each other? How do we love our young folks, our seniors? And also love this process. And then also liberation. That's so huge for all of this. We are all trying to get free. And so this work is about freeing us not only from our oppression, but also freeing us from our trauma. I'm seeing commitment. I'm seeing love is still a big one here. Mindfulness, respect, appreciation, true healing and healing, anti-racism. Yeah, keep it going. Decolonization for sure. Commitment. If we're going to be together on a Zoom from 5:30 to 7, that's commitment, right? So making sure that we are committed. I'm seeing healing and love, respect, liberation again. Some of the smaller ones, social justice, family, truth, tolerance. So I appreciate that y'all are participating in this and really looking at how our values grow as a group right in front of us. How they're being developed is a really beautiful process. So take a couple more minutes to do that, and we'll make sure that we share this stuff, we share our values, we share our community agreements. And in the interest of time, I just want to move on to the last thing, which is how do we make sure that this conversation isn't just something that we pat ourselves on the back as doing the first meeting, And then we just say, okay, great. We had the mushy conversation about feelings and love and respect. And how do we make sure that we're holding ourselves accountable to moving forward? Also, how do we make sure we hold ourselves accountable to the things that we need to learn as a group? And so when we say DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, that we really mean it, and not just in a buzzword, but what voices are here, what voices are not here, and why? Whose voices make it to be heard? Whose voices are at the table? Who has power in this conversation? So something we discussed when we were planning this is perhaps we would take, maybe 15 minutes on each meeting to talk about these issues, to talk about concepts related to DEI, and what's some of those foundational tools and foundational knowledge that we're going to need as a group. Some of us are super versed in anti-racism. Some of us maybe not so much. Some of us really understand gender justice. Some of us maybe not so much. So I want to hear from the group, if we were to build in this DEI lab or DEI moment, what are going to be some things that you would want our group to engage in? And you can use the chat, you can unmute, do whatever you want. What are some of those things that you would like to see for opportunities for learning and engagement around topics around diversity, equity, inclusion, oppression, all that good stuff?
I'd like to, for us to be mindful of how white supremacy culture shows up in DEI work, in language, right? So phrases that we use that really still show privilege and power, like dominant culture, non-dominant culture, how that can impact someone's identity. So just being mindful of certain phrases that really reinforce white supremacy culture versus shared equity and liberation and shared power.
Absolutely, words matter, words mean things. The way that we talk about these things mean things. And that's kind of what's so insidious about white supremacy is sometimes it can be odorless, right? You don't even know that you're doing it. You don't even know that it's in the room, and then bam, there it is. And a lot of that is the language that we use. So thank you so much for that. Other things that we should be concerned about learning and engaging with as a group. Corey, I see your hand.
Yeah, I feel that this group should be like trained above trained to be able to handle different happenings that happens in Baltimore City. Real quick, even when the mayor was speaking, we saw a person who was mentally ill, and luckily I had a relationship with him, and I was able to de-escalate him. But long story short, I think people should be trained in Maryland mental health first aid. Like we all should be trained to trainers, whatever that looks like. And if we're trained, we can better help most of the third of Baltimore City that suffers from mental health. All right, I'm gonna shut up now.
That was an awesome contribution, Corey. Thank you for that. If we're going to be ambassadors of trauma-informed care, then we have to be clear on how we're not re-traumatizing folks when we engage, right? And so if that means understanding mental health first aid or communication strategies or white supremacist language, then we have to offer ourselves that information too. So I appreciate that. Other folks, just a couple more around things that you might want to see. Let's see, I see something in, Lyndell, please.
Yeah, so I guess with what I'm hearing here too is like, I wanted to learn more about how we're addressing things like structural racism and structural violence in our organizations and in the work that we do, and holding our own work more accountable so that this movement is more transformative and starts to branch out to everyone holding themselves accountable, and then as a collective how we can like maintain that and how we can move that forward, as well as like generations passing that kind of those kind of new structures down.
Thank you so much for that. Absolutely. While we're sitting here doing this great work together, there are things that we could be taking back to our lives and our organizations right now. So making sure that ripple effect is happening in all the ways. So I appreciate that. I think there's some stuff in the chat. Introspection, right? And so Mark, did you want to talk a little bit more about what that means to you?
Sure. I'll just piggyback on what the young gentleman just said. I think a lot of times, well, from time to time, not a lot of times, from time to time, we benefit from some of the structures that are already put in place. So we may be hesitant to break those walls down as well. So we need to make sure that Introspectively, I know for me personally, some ways that I benefit from the system that's in place. I understand the importance of dismantling that system though. So just being honest about kind of where we are and where we want to be. And then also taking I guess, a more of a proactive versus reactive approach as well to the work. I think a lot of what is in place is extremely reactive after the fact of, versus trying to put resources and things in place to prevent, so people don't have to continue to be resilient and things of that nature.
Wonderful. Being proactive versus reactive. I really love that. I also see here in the chat, Zeke and Faria also agrees, talking particularly about how racism has shaped trauma in our city. And we are going to have to confront that. We can't do this work without talking very deeply and intimately about how race-based violence has contributed to outcomes that we see today. Formal training is a must on anti-racism, decolonization, and trauma, absolutely. So we want to make a commitment to you all to make sure that we provide those things and that we have those conversations, not only just for this work, but for the benefit of just us as people doing work in Baltimore. So I really appreciate you all engaging in this conversation. We'll save all of this stuff so that it's memorialized and that we can hold ourselves accountable. But I'll be your the DEI sort of voice. But I am not the only one. It's very clear that so many of us on this team are very well steeped in these values and in these concepts. And so making sure that we push each other, you push me, I push you, so that we're all doing this work together. So I appreciate the time. Thanks, Zeke and Tisha, for inviting me into the space this way. And I'll hand it back over to you all.
Great. So can we please give some snaps or claps or love or whatever it is for Jabari, who is the best at doing what Jabari does. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That was excellent and so well, you're able to pull stuff out of folks in a way that I've honestly never seen before. So thank you for what you do. So really quick, since we're a little bit low on time, I'm going to ask Anne to just put in the chat the 7 things that this legislation calls for our task force to do. And if folks have, oh yeah, even better. Could everybody see that more or less? Okay. So just really briefly, so this is kind of the baseline of what the legislation lays out for us to do. We can iterate, we can build off of these, we can go in different directions, but wanted to just provide a sort of a frame that this is part of what legislatively this task force is able to do, which is to identify city programs and services that impact children and youth. We are going to assist in a citywide strategy toward an organizational culture shift into trauma responsive government. We're going to be able to establish some metrics with the health department to evaluate and assess the trainings that the health department is doing. I'll say briefly, the training that we've been developing really relies on community-based organizations in partnership with the health department to deliver, whether it's mindfulness, whether it's the restorative practices, whether it's healing from a youth perspective, really centering the voices of community. Tisha, Director Edwards, Tisha, do you want to just read the last 3 real quick? And if anyone has any questions about any of these, please either throw them out in the chat or jump out.
Right, I'm happy to. And Ann, are they all, is it 7 or is it 6?
So there are 7, but the 7th is to report to the mayor. Okay. So
got it. So our 4th critical task is coordinate and develop with the Baltimore City Department of Health any formal or informal training, trauma-informed care training. And I saw in the chat box questions about training. So There is going to be lots of capacity building and training, recommendations and opportunities coming out of this group. Disseminate information within city government regarding best practices for preventing and mitigating the impact of trauma, on facilitating healing with children, youth, and families, which we are all very excited about. Again, we want to change the city's culture. And so educating and creating a strong sense of awareness in city government is critical to this task force. We want to advise and assist the mayor and city council in providing oversight and accountability in implementing the requirements of this plan. Our responsibility is to report out on the great work that we are going to do together. Is there anything else, Anne? That's it? Okay, great. Thank you.
Perfect. And if anyone has any questions on any of that, Mark says, is the intent of the task force to develop and implement trauma-informed services or have city agencies to deliver trauma-informed care? So a little both, a little bit of option A, option B, Mark. It is both really to develop the city's strategy as it relates to trauma-informed care. And in the next meeting, we're going to start talking about what some of the subcommittees, we obviously can't just roll as a team of 36 at all times. Love all of y'all, but it's a lot of us. And so we're going to have to break into committees, and we're going to talk a little bit about what each of those are going to do. But one is to really inform the city's strategy through policies, whether it's in the city council, the mayor, our friends in Annapolis. And then two is to support, hold accountable, help develop the training that is going to be disseminated in city government as well as out in community. And so there's going to be opportunities for us as a task force to help to both brainstorm, evaluate, develop some of the training that the health department is charged with doing, and also bring our own skills, gifts, et cetera, to that work as well. And then, like Tisha said, we're going to report out to the mayor and to the city council on what we got. All right. Any other questions? Seeing none. Okay, we are doing great on time. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, in the spirit of really getting to know each other and our work, and there is amazing, amazing work among folks in this group, as you've already seen. What I'm going to ask is, and in the spirit of Jabari's brave space, that we have 3 or 4 people volunteer to begin the next meeting by sharing 3 minutes worth of who you are and what you bring to this work. We know 30 seconds was not enough. And you can do that however you want to do it. If you want to do hip hop, that's great. If you want to do spoken word, that's great. If you want to do a PowerPoint, that's great. If you want to do some art, painting, and show us who you are through that, that's amazing too. However you want to present yourself, you got 3 minutes to do it. And we're going to do it through, these meetings are going to be virtual for the time being. So it's going to be, again, on Zoom. We can help you if you need like support with the PowerPoint. But would anyone like to volunteer? We didn't want to like pick folks or do it that way because of the first one and, it engenders nervousness. But would anyone like to volunteer to be part of the first group of sharing about yourself? All right.
I'll do it. School always told me to go first.
I see Mr. Mark. I see Dr. Tara.
Volunteer.
Excellent. And I got Corey. And I see Elijah. Okay. So I got Elijah, Corey, Tara, and Mark. Outstanding. Y'all are amazing. All right. Teresa, Ms. Bruce, yes, artifact sharing. Absolutely. If that's what you want to do, bring an artifact, whether it's food or whatever it is, bring it. Absolutely. All right. So I am looking forward to hearing you all at the next. Again, if you need help supporting a PowerPoint or anything like that, let us know. As a reminder, Anne will be asking for your social media handles so that when we tweet and Facebook and all the rest and Insta and TikTok, that we've got everybody's stuff. And again, I want to sincerely and truly thank all of you for your commitment. This is an incredible, incredible group. I am like even more excited and energized than when we started this meeting, which is hard to do because I've been on Zoom all day long, but I'm really excited for what we're going to accomplish together. And with that, ended 2 minutes early. So unless anyone else has anything else, let's get to work. And I'll see you in 2 weeks.
All right, let's get it.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening.